Hello, friends.
Hello.
And welcome to another episode of Next Level Love Stories, where we take a behind the scenes look at real life relationships to share the truth about it, what this adventure of love can look like, and what it really takes to succeed. We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Jenny Wallig.
And I'm Calvin O'Seely, and we're the founders of Power for Love Relationships, and we're the creators of the Be the One method for creating extraordinary relationships. And today, we're excited to welcome Jayne Gomez, aka Jayne the Coachess.
Jayne is a relationship coach who is passionate about supporting couples to navigate the long-term relationship pitfalls that can either make or break them. Married to her husband, Rick, for nearly 14 years, this couple has made it through one of the hardest things that couples sometimes have to go through, right? And the result has been not only a next level love, but the inspiration to support other couples in finding their own way through those hard times to a loving relationship that lasts. Jayne, thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your story today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about your love story? How did you and Rick meet? How did the unfolding go?
Yeah, so as you said, we've been together now for 14 years at the end of this year. We met in 2010 in an internet chat room. I live and am based in Manchester in the UK. Rick lived in New York at the time. He was born in Brooklyn, raised in New York. It was a chance meeting in this internet chat room that you didn't have profiles and people. It just shared a screen with somebody there at the other side. And this particular evening, Rick happened to be the person on the other side. We just got on.
Yeah,
we just got on.
It's amazing.
Instantly, really well. And we chatted for probably around, I think, 3 hours. So it was, I think, mid-afternoon New York time, later in the evening here in Manchester. And yeah, I think we chatted for a few hours. By that time, by sort of later in the call, we realized if we ended the call, there was no way to ever reconnect with each other again, which feels pretty scary now. So I remember at the last minute being really nervous, but giving Rick my email address. And I gave him my email address and we ended the call. And he did actually email me the day after. And at that time, I did have some relationship trauma from a past marriage. So I was quite wary of men, if I'm absolutely honest. And I think I didn't get any bad vibes from Rick, which is good because I married him. But I also knew that I needed to make the decision then just based on my own behavior around men and relationships, that I did have a habit of kind of engaging with guys, but then I would ghost them and fall off the face of the earth because I would get overwhelmed with the thought of getting into another relationship or trying to get to know another man again. So I had a conversation with myself to say, if that's ultimately what you're going to do with this guy, just don't email him back. Just don't do it to him and don't do it to you. And after that conversation, I thought, actually, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. So emailed him back. He'd said, hi, how was I? I really enjoyed the chat the evening before. I emailed him back. That just started just a daily connection and contact between us to unfold more or less immediately. And that was in the May of 2010. We chatted daily on Skype. We quickly grew very, very close and realized, despite the fact that neither of us had met each other, we were in love with each other, which was absolutely crazy.
Not expecting that, right?
I think the other I actually think it's a cute thing, but the other point to note is there is an age gap between Rick and I. At the time, I was 36, single, divorced 4 years, and Rick was 23, and still in uni in New York, completing a finance degree. And yeah, so from that daily contact and connection building up really quickly, from May 2010, we met in person for the first time in that September of 2010 when Rick flew over here to meet me. As crazy as it sounds, because neither of us are crazy people, we were that sure of where this was going by that time. Rick brought a ring to Manchester Airport and proposed to me then.
The first time he sees you in person, the ring is out, and wow.
Yeah, and one of the main things I remember about that first meeting is Rick saying to me, wow, I realized I knew you were small, but I never realized you were so small because I'm only 5. But he still proceeded to propose to me, and I actually accepted his proposal there and then at Manchester Airport. We spent around 2 weeks together, and he then had to fly back to New York. He then proceeded to get a spousal visa to come back in the December that year, and we married on New Year's Eve in Manchester, just 7 months after meeting. New Year's Eve 2010. Amazing. So
now remind me historically, because my brain technology doesn't remember. Was video calling conversation like this a thing that we were readily doing in 2010 when you guys met?
So it wasn't, the technology wasn't readily available, and it certainly wasn't in smartphones and things like that, Calvin. But we did download Skype, so we could do it through Skype. And that's really, it was Skype and email. It was because of the time difference. I would email him in the morning when I got up, which was still the middle of the night, New York time. He would get up and read that before he started his day. He would email me back. So I would come home from work to that email. And then usually over the weekends, when the time difference meant that we were both up and around, we would just Skype for hours and hours. So it was, I think the thing that I loved about it, and the thing that I loved about the bond that grew between us, was the only way we could converse was through conversation. There was no physical intervention. There was no intimate intervention. We could only talk, and that's what we did for 5 months daily for 5 months, just about everything and anything. So we just got to know each other really unconventionally, but really, really well when I look back on that, because nothing else can get in the way.
That's amazing. What a gift to base the beginning of your foundation on, that level of knowing another person, that level of connection. And really it's a level of intimacy that, because of the physical sexual component that so often also shows up, for people in the beginning of the relationship, it kind of takes over in the new relationship energy. So I wanted to ask though, because you mentioned in passing that you'd had some relationship trauma, that you kind of had sworn off men. You you didn't think that this was possible, and then all of a sudden you met Rick and had a conversation with yourself and decided to take the risk, take the next step, and then it just really took off from there. What did you notice about Rick or about the relationship dynamics that supported you in feeling safer, trusting this man, this relationship could be different, such that even after some relationship trauma stuff, you knew you were good to say yes to marry him after just 7 months?
So I think that goes it plays into the fact that, yes, my first marriage, I married at 21. It was really dysfunctional and really toxic. And it did warp my sense of relationships. And relationships after that were not something that I wanted. And after a few years of being divorced and being single, so really in my early 30s, a lot of my friends and family at times would say like, oh, so when are you going to get back into the dating game, and when are you going to get out meeting people again? And I always came back to the same answer, which was, for me, it's not about a relationship, because I don't miss relationships. It's about a person, and I will know if I ever meet that person. And I knew when I met Rick that I'd met that person. Even before I'd met him in real life, I knew that that was the person that I talked about, that I referred to in those conversations. It was, yeah, almost effortless. There was no trepidation or fear around, because I did have a fear around dating, in terms of, I had an overriding fear of, how will I get out of this when I want to get out of this? And that kept me stuck and not engaging with men. But I didn't feel any of that with Rick. I didn't feel there would ever be a point where I felt, how am I going to get out of this?
So it's like this, it sounds like it was just this kind of ongoing feedback from your interactions, that this feels okay, this feels good, this feels easy, I'm not getting any red flags, I'm not, and that kept you moving forward down the path with him.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, Jenny, because the other thing that I always joke about, like with friends and stuff, is I always inherently looked for buts. Like, I would meet someone and I would say, oh, he's a nice guy, but in the 5 months Rick and I were speaking without meeting, I looked long and hard for that but. And I never found it.
Okay.
I never found it. And I did look for it. And I never found the but.
Well, so I would love to hear, though, right? So you talk about sort of the speed, right? And this really strong sense of just knowing, and green flags all the way, right? I'd love to hear, though, right? I'm sure in that speed, certainly from people around you, or in living in two different countries, there's some challenges that you all have faced as well. I'd love to kind of hear, right, like, how did you navigate sharing this with people that were closer to you? What kind of challenges came up there?
That's a really good question, Calvin. It was a really quite an unusual way of meeting someone, even though internet dating is a big thing. International internet dating probably isn't. And certainly when I entered that chat room that day, I was not looking at dating. It was just a way to meet people and chat with people. Just in a really easy way. So I think once we realized, Rick and I, what was going on, it was kind of like, oh, this, how are we going to navigate this with other people? And I think as the weeks and the months passed on, one of the things that I think, despite people's concerns and reservations and worries, which were largely worrying and negative for people, I think in our own respective circles, we were both really level-headed, responsible, sensible people. Neither of us were known for our emotions, just to let those run away with us. And I know some people are like that, but I think because neither Rick or I are like that, as the time went on, I think our friends and family realised this is genuine. They are genuine. This is just a really amazing love story. And it must have been bizarre, and and particularly for our parents, who don't understand the world of online dating and virtual anyway.
Especially in 2010, right? There's still stigma around.
Yeah. Yeah. And through all that time, we managed to build our network of family and friends together. Obviously, you've got Facebook, you've got social media. So again, I think that helped in terms of the genuineness of what was happening. There was no red flags, there was no ulterior motives, there wasn't anything that made any of us think, is this person the person I think that they are, or is this person not the person I think they are? And to be fair, when Rick came, which was the day after Christmas 2010, when we were getting married, like his parents came and his sister, and I met them for the first time, and friends, and I met them for the first time at our wedding. And and we don't talk about it as much now as we used to do. And 14 years later, it's easy to forget that
how
that's
incredible
how all
it
this
was.
happened.
It sounds like your own confidence and conviction about the relationship helped the other people in your lives like feel like trust you, trust that this, and start to see as you continued to interact and things continued to be all green light all the way, they saw that this was real.
Yeah.
And they believed it.
Yeah. And then we married on the New Year's Eve of 2010. Rick was here on a spousal visa, so he had to go home again in the new year. We didn't, between us, Rick was in his last year in uni studying finance. I was in sort of administration roles that didn't pay terribly, that didn't pay really well. So again, that was just another reason to know that there was no funny business going on. Nobody was fleecing anybody, or because neither of us really had anything. So what little we did have, Rick scraped the money together to get a residence visa even though we were already married then, we were husband and wife, which he did get, and he moved to Manchester to be with me in the May of 2011. So a year after we met, we could finally be together permanently.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you've got this really powerful, magical beginning of a love story. And spoiler alert to those listening, Cal and I know that it didn't stay that way forever, right? You hit a really big challenge that risked, your relationship not continuing. Can you share that story and what you all learned and how you got through it?
Yeah. So in 2022, in the summer of 2022, so Rick and I had been together, married for almost 12 years. For all intents and purposes, we had a healthy, happy marriage all the way through. We always got on, never really had major confrontations or major arguments. I think Rick's personality is that way anyway. I come from such a toxic relationship. I just did not invite confrontation because I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it. And in 2022, I kind of realized and felt that something wasn't right between me and Rick. And I think the thing that made me realize it was, and it probably won't surprise you guys to hear this, I noticed a change in his phone use. He was on his phone a lot. He was taking his phone everywhere. It was going to the bathroom with him. It was going absolutely everywhere. I was realizing he was spending a lot of time on a messaging app called WhatsApp. Kind of joined some dots in my own head and confronted him about it. And he opened up immediately and said that he'd met a woman on a night out. And just even talking about it, just the feelings that came, I was blindsided, did not see it coming, just didn't, it wasn't expected. The way we were as a couple is not something I ever thought I would ever having to be navigating. It was a tough time, and it was a tough time not just because of what had happened, but Rick was also kind of saying that this woman had got under his skin and he felt like he might have feelings for this woman. So it was a bomb under the marriage. It was a real bomb under the marriage.
And one that a lot of marriages don't survive.
Yeah.
It rocks your world, you know, to learn that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was an awful, what I think probably amounted to a couple of weeks, even though it felt like months. I was broken. I was completely broken. The times we were, I was consumed by it. I was consumed by everything that had gone on, trying to thrash out what we were going to do. And I am quite practical by nature, and I'm not fueled by emotions. So I had started to do some practical things in terms of, I sought some legal advice, and just in terms of the fallout from everything that had happened, we were having conversations about separating. And I'd also told Rick that he probably needed to leave, you know, and not to downplay this, we have a daughter between us. I think Maisie was 7 at the time. So she was wondering what was going on. And she'd never seen her parents interact in the way that we were interacting during that time.
It's quite a contrast, I imagine, from the happy, healthy, smooth relationship experience you've been having for so long.
Yeah, and that was all she'd known. So it was, whilst we tried to shield her as much as we could, she knew things were not good. And I think we got to a stage, or should I say, Rick got to a stage after we'd both been through an absolute emotional washing machine, where he said, this isn't right. This isn't right what I've done. This is not right what I've been doing. And I'm going to end it with the woman. And as I said, the damage was done then. I was broken. I was a shell of myself. And we were in a situation where we hadn't quite started any separation proceedings. And we were in a what happens now situation. And yeah, that's where we were.
So what did you do? How did you get from there to here?
Yeah, back to better and good. Yeah.
That's what everybody wants to know, right? Like if they're in it and they're like in the devastation, they feel like it's not even possible because the damage has been done.
Most people, it's done. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Rick was obviously in a place of real guilt and remorse.
Yeah, that's an important step.
I was in a place of relief, but still utter devastation, and did question whether or not we could make it back. So I originally decided to look. I admitted immediately that I would need some professional help to get through this. This is not something I would be able to do alone, and I knew that, and I know my own mind, and I know myself. So I found a counsellor, and I had a face-to-face session with a counsellor, and it was probably about an hour's session, and I came away from it knowing that that wasn't the solution for me, because it was just reliving everything that I'd had to go through just for the sake of saying it out loud, when it was spinning around my head all day, every day. And I just didn't find any benefit at all from just saying it to somebody else. So I realized that was not the thing that was going to get me through it. And then after that, I did ask Rick, and Rick was so keen to try and get us back on track that I insisted that we go to marriage counselling, and we found a marriage counsellor, and we booked a session with this marriage counsellor, and we arrived at this session with her, and it was absolutely horrendous. I think the way Rick describes it now is, if you imagine you watching some form of a sitcom, and there's a couple there in a really toe-curling marriage counselling session, and you're sat on a settee watching it because it's funny. We were that couple, and it was horrible. Neither of us felt comfortable about what she was asking us to share. She made us sit on chairs facing each other, and asking one of us to say something and the other one to repeat it. And in terms of reading the room for what was going on for me and Rick, she was not reading that room.
I'm flabbergasted that she would do something like this on a first session. There's like no safety established, and you two are still in like acute,
very painful
pain around what happened. Man, that's
and she knew that. She knew why we were coming. She knew the timelines. She knew we were nowhere near out of the other side of it. We were only just starting to see if that was possible. And I think we both came out of that session knowing full well that marriage counselling was not the thing.
You hear that a lot.
So you exhausted most of the options that people,
the regular options
that people consider,
most common.
Yeah. And then it was almost by chance. I came across a lady who I'd met once before at a meetup in Manchester, and she'd friend requested me on Facebook, and I accepted this friend request. And when I looked at her profile, I could see that she was a life coach, and I didn't know what life coaching was. I don't know anything about coaching, and just read a little bit about what she did and what life coaching was. And I just reached out to her on a Facebook message and said, "Oh, it's great to connect. I see you're a life coach. I don't know what that is." I just went into some brief explanation as to what was happening, where I was at, certainly mentally and emotionally, because of what was happening at home, and did I think she'd be able to help me? And she messaged back and said, "I'm sure I can. Let's just have an informal chat, see where you're at, see what I can offer you, see what you need, and we'll take it from there." And we did, and I had some life coaching on my own with her, about 3 months worth of life coaching. And it was absolutely transformational for me and my mindset, for my life, for my home life, for my aspirations. And I knew immediately that I want to do this. I want to do this for a living. This has been it. It saved me, and it saved my marriage, and it's just taken me on such an amazing journey. Something that was so traumatic that made me question everything about the way the universe works was actually putting me on a path to my life's purpose, is what I feel now. And it's Rick and I are 2 years out of that now, and we are happier, stronger, more in love with each other, and respectful of each other and than we ever were before, and we were a really close couple before.
So good.
Yeah, it was the whole. Yeah, it was.
Yay!
Could never have even imagined that something so good could have come from something so
Seriously,
bad.
but there are, if you look for them, there are so many gifts in the things that we don't prefer. Sometimes the universe has to do that stuff to us to get us on the path, like give us a little nudge.
And that's, that's a core belief that Cal and I have, particularly where relationships are concerned, right? That the challenges that show up in our relationships are all these beautiful opportunities to accelerate our growth, our healing, and our purpose. If we can meet those challenges and choose to move through them and allow them to transform us, right? Allow ourselves to learn what we're being called in to learn and grow in the ways that we're being called in to grow. And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah. And I think for me, from the initial aftermath of it, I did start to try to muscle up the mindset to think, what lessons can I learn from this? What lessons can we learn from this? But equally, I think the thing that the realization that I got from the coaching was the part that I was then playing in sabotaging us rebuilding. And it was accountability for me. It was easy, and I think it's probably easy for a lot of couples in our situation to project on the person that's done the thing and say, this is for you to fix. And I had that realization through the coaching that it wasn't for Rick to fix, it was for us to fix.
Yeah, you
both of us to fix.
Huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I have a couple of follow-up questions.
Yeah,
I know I'm taking a lot of space, so please jump in, honey, if you have more questions. Because this is such a rich story, Jayne, and I think it's so important that people hear this. So first of all, just want to clarify, was Rick doing coaching, therapy,
that was my question,
some kind of work too, or was it just you who was engaging with your life coach that supported all of this learning, growth, and transformation?
Yeah, so it was just me. It was just me that had the coaching. The stuff that we did together, we felt didn't work. I think Rick's own journey, I think what Rick needed from that situation was to know that there was some way he could make things right. He didn't necessarily need the emotional support to get over it, but once I got the emotional support that I needed to get over it, we got through it together. And I think Rick's take on it, even now, and it doesn't come up often anymore, thankfully, is it's something that he is ashamed about and wants to forget about. And I think getting the right emotional support helps you to come out of the other side without reliving it, without it causing long-lasting trauma, because you need to work through a process of getting through it by going through it, not going around it.
By taking steps forward and not spending all your time and energy looking backward. 100%.
Yeah. And I had to a certain extent, respect and acknowledge that Rick just wanted to forget about it. And for a while, I wasn't able to let him do that. He was coming home from work. I'd been thinking about it all day. He was in a situation where, what am I going to come home to? And that was the realization for me that I am now starting to sabotage this myself.
That's amazing. And I want to just highlight, Jayne, the power that you're demonstrating, that each of us has in our relationship to contribute either to like the success and positive change we want, or to contribute to things staying the same or getting worse. That doesn't mean, right? That doesn't mean that it was all on you to fix this, that you were the victim, and then now you also had the responsibility to do all of the labor to fix it. the truth is Rick wanted to fix it. Rick was a willing partner who wanted to heal, wanted to grow, wanted to improve things with you. He but his path for doing that was different from yours. And when you did your own work to be able to shift into a greater willingness, a greater consciousness of how you could help that healing, that reconnection, that repair happen, how you could set him up for success in repairing with you, in rebuilding trust with you, you did your part and you worked together as a team, right? But it's like you took responsibility for your part of the teamness and got better at how you showed up for the team, which empowered Rick because he wanted to be part of the team too, to do his part of being part of the team, and then you did it together. But I think that's such an important clarity that I want anybody listening to hear. That it's like it's never just one person that's fully responsible. It's always both, yes. And you can choose to do your own work, right? You could choose to do your own growth. You could choose to focus on your part of how you can participate in making this better. And as long as your partner is willing to continue to dance with you, as we like to say, they will also improve too. And that's like so revolutionary.
It is. I think it was a realization for me, and still it's a message that I drive home for my clients and the people in my circle, is around the importance of acknowledging the part that you play in your own relationship woes, not the other person.
Yeah.
Because that's where blame and projecting does not bring people closer. It moves people further apart. And it was just a massive revolution.
I love it. And it's exactly where we landed too in our relationship that allowed our relationship to transform in the work that we're doing with couples, right? It's why we call our core program, or our core curriculum, Be the One, because our work is helping each partner become the one that they need to be to create the transformations that they desire to experience in their relationship. And your story is such a profound example of even in one of the most painful, traumatic, devastating, world-shattering experiences that couples can have, that even just one person learning and growing with the right support.
Yes.
Right? You didn't have to do couples therapy. You didn't have to do couples coaching. You didn't have to have Rick fix it and make it up to you and be the one to make it all better. Like, you stepped into that power and leadership, Jayne. And not only did you help your relationship succeed, you learned a key lesson that now you can empower other couples, other partners in relationships to be able to do and step into their own power to transform things. Amazing.
Absolutely. It does take two. It does take two. And it takes work and commitment from both sides.
Yes. So this is a little bit off topic, but I'm wondering if you could speak to it a little bit, because it seems like a really great opportunity to introduce this conversation. You tried a couple different therapies, like traditional therapy models, and then you connected with a life coach, and it was so powerful and transformational that you decided, this is what I want to do. I want to do coaching. And
yes,
can you just speak a little bit to what your sense of that difference is between, especially for couples who I think their go-to is, we have to go to couples therapy. Right. And so you, like us, offering this alternative, this isn't therapy. This is couples coaching. This is relationship coaching. What's the difference? What makes it special? What makes it, dare we say, more effective, a better option?
I think certainly for me, in my experience and the coach training that I've done, one of the biggest differences between coaching and therapy is overarchingly, coaching is solution focused. and therapy is focusing on the issues, whereas coaching, for me, in lots of different niches of coaching, is heavily focused on working through solutions, not trolling over the problem. And that was the thing for me that helped me to move forward in terms of where I was at that time. Where do you want to get to? What steps are you going to put in place to get there? And that's, for me, the key that makes couples coaching so much more effective, because I certainly focus very heavily on what a couple are moving toward as opposed to what they are moving away from. And even in our initial conversations and consultations, that is what I focus on. Talk to me about where
where are we going? Exactly.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Know where you want to go. We can help you figure out how.
Yep.
We don't need to spend all this time in like rehashing all the past.
Yeah, looking in the rear view.
Yeah, because it's easy to focus in any situation in life on the things, the negative things, and the things that you don't want to be experiencing anymore. It's very easy to do that, but it's really empowering to flip that and be thinking about, actually, my goals, my aspirations, my dreams for in 6 months' time, this is what I want it to look like. So that's fine. That's the basis on which we will work together.
Yeah. Oh, love it. I love it. You know what you're doing, Jayne.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing.
You know the secret.
And I love it. I love the fact that I do this, and this is what I get to do for a living now. I feel very, fortunate.
Feel that. So we'd love to hear, because you've developed so much wisdom in these experiences. We'd love to hear what advice or words of wisdom you have for the people who might be watching right now.
Or listening.
Yeah. So I think a big one for me, and again, it plays heavily into my messaging and what I stand for, is don't coast in your relationships. Don't take each other for granted and think that that's okay, because it's not. And as much as Rick and I had a happy, healthy marriage, taking each other for granted, being too busy to pay attention to each other, being too busy to prioritize our marriage was what I know now led to the infidelities that happened for us. So it's not always about something big and traumatic that happens that forces a couple into thinking we need some help. Quite the opposite. Just coasting and relationship complacency was the thing that caused us our issue. And we've never gone back there since. 2 years later, we've never gone back to that situation. We've always put the same importance and priority in us as we do in everything else. Because you can't just expect. So I liken it into as individuals, we all have career goals and aspirations. And to reach those goals and aspirations, you wouldn't turn up into work every day just putting in the bare minimum and not being interested. And at the end of it, expect to have an amazing career, because you know it wouldn't get you there. And I feel exactly the same about our relationships. We should adopt the same attitude there as well.
So good.
Yes, that is gold, Jayne. Thank you for sharing that.
Indeed.
So, speaking of not just coasting in your relationship, I want to just put a little pitch in here, because I'm feeling inspired to do this. Like, Cal and I are hosting our very first retreat in spring of 2025, and I just want to say that, like, there are lots of ways to keep investing and nourishing your relationship, and it's essential that couples find it. And For couples who are stuck or want to do like a deep dive injection, going on a couples retreat can be a really great reset and accelerator of reinvesting and like learning how to stay in that investment so you don't keep coasting, which is
momentum.
which is a really big piece of why we want to do this particular retreat. So I just thought that I would bring that up because it was here.
I saw that, and we are so far away from where
it's
is
in Costa Rica.
It is.
Yeah. It would be a bit of a journey for you, though, of course. You know, I would love to have you.
Absolutely. But yeah, it does look and sound amazing, guys.
Thank you. So we've got one question that we like to land on as we wrap up these really beautiful conversations, which is what's next for you and Rick? How are you continuing to grow and expand and improve your relationship? What is your next level after this? Or like now that you're here, where do you want to go next?
Yeah. I think a big one for us is awareness and willingness. We all get busy. We all have things going on. Just that awareness that actually our time, our connection is slipping, and we need to bring that back, because I think that was the slippery slope in the first instance. However, none of us had the realization that we had actually drifted apart and it was too late. So it's that awareness and it's that consciousness that it has to be worked on daily, and it doesn't have to be big grand gestures. It doesn't have to be flowers. It doesn't have to be date nights. Rick and I, our daughter is 10 now. We don't have a whole lot of help with babysitters, things like that. So we don't get a whole lot of time together, but just little things, Jenny, like messaging during the day for no reason, things like that we never consciously didn't do before. Messaging before might have just been right, or something needs doing, or this has happened, but just little acts of love like that just keep things so nice between you, just so special, even after 14 years. Or sending memes, sending messages. Sometimes, occasionally, Rick teaches finance qualifications, so he can't always speak. But every now and again, the phone will ring, as it might do when he's on a break, and he will say, "I'm just ringing you just because." And that's just so special, because he doesn't need to do that. And it's things like that that keep that momentum going and keep those signs and signals that you appreciate each other.
Yeah, I love that. The awareness, the consciousness, like being really intentional about doing that.
Intentional,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I would love for you to share a little bit more, Jayne, about how people can find you, how they could potentially work with you, and or if you have any,
what you have going on,
you have any offers, any opportunities for couples or people right now, because it's clear that you know what you're doing, your wealth of wisdom, you've got it figured out because you've lived it, which I think is the most important testimonial. Tell us about how people can reach you.
Yeah, so I'm currently running a 3-month couples coaching program called Grow Together, Not Apart. And it's basically based on getting couples connecting again, whether that be on the back of something really traumatic that's happened that they need to work through, or just a realization that we've drifted apart and we really don't want this. We're committed and we want to find our way back to each other again. It's a 3-month coaching course. It I use a framework that provides couples with the skills, knowledge, and awareness that they need to not just survive their relationships, but thrive in those relationships. And the outcomes and the transformations there, because it is solution focused, are really wonderful to see, both for me and the couples that come out the other side. Just feeling and realizing just how special your relationship can be and just how special each other are. You just So that's running at the moment. It is at a reduced rate because it's a fairly new program that I'm just working with a select number of couples on, just to make sure that that's getting the results that the couples want. You can find me on LinkedIn. All my details and my contact details are on there.
And we will make sure to get those links in the show notes as well, so folks can have easy access to finding, reaching you, and learning more about the Grow Together Not Apart program or any other thing that you've got going on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sounds fabulous.
Well, Jayne, thank you again so very much for sharing your time and energy and wisdom with us, your very vulnerable story.
You guys. Yeah, thank you guys. It is super important. I think there are lots of things in life that make life really awful if things aren't going well. And I think in your relationships, if your relationship is not going well, it's just a ripple effect 100%. On the rest of your life. It's a ripple effect on children, other family members,
your career, your business, your health,
everything. Yeah, everything. Health. Yeah. And I think it's super important to, as I said, be thriving in that area of your life, not just surviving it. Let's face it, we all spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good. So good.
Oh, thanks, guys. I really enjoyed it.
And to everybody who's tuned in, thank you so much for taking this time for yourself and your relationship to learn and grow. We hope that you'll join us next week for another Next Level Love story. And please share your takeaways in the chat.
Yeah, what did you learn about love today?